Content release style for Disney Plus. I am actually a big fan of this. I think I'm in the minority based on people I've talked to. But episodic seasons. So let's say they release a season of a TV show. They are going to be releasing them episode by episode. So
Weekly.
sometimes weekly. It'll be different for different series, but for the most part, weekly. As opposed to something like Netflix or Hulu, where they release pretty much, if it's their own content, all at once.
Yep.
So you can binge watch it, which you did for Stranger Things,
Oh,
of course.
I solidly did that for Stranger Things, yeah.
So you get up quite early, by the way.
4 a.m.
Yes.
Gotta
again,
do
why
it
not?
before the barbecue.
There's no better time. So in this case, for example, the first original bit of content is The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Right, for Star Wars here. That's going to be weekly. For me, this works wonderfully. I feel like when I have to binge a TV show, I say have to, it's almost to an extent like I have homework. Or like when I get behind and my friends are talking about it or people in Geekiverse are talking about it, I can't keep up, and then I'm like, oh, what's the point?
Yeah,
and it's a problem with me. But guess what? I've also got a little one at home and a 9 to 5, so it all kind of factors in. Not to mention we have the video game side of things here at the Geekiverse that we try to keep afloat. So
for sure, I think even like avoiding spoilers can be a problem too. Like
it can be.
So I'm not torn, but I don't care.
It's a big deal to some people.
To some people, for sure.
it is
For
the
me,
internet.
however you decide to kind of get your content out there, I'm on board. I almost feel like some of these shows are like made with the distribution in mind. Like there are certain Netflix shows that I can tell are made because they know that they're all going to be coming out at once, where they may not have made some certain decisions if they were coming out weekly, because that episode 3 may have been horrible if it was the only one you got all week, but if you can watch another one right after, it's more serviceable. So I think like the medium is actually important in terms of how this stuff is made. So if it's made with weekly or monthly in mind, then that's the way it's going to be, because that's the way they want to make it.
Interesting.
And like my only concern is I always compare, for me, Stranger Things versus Game of Thrones. Two great shows, give or take the last season. Game of Thrones really suffered in season 6 with leaks. Episodes would come out days, if not a week early. And that was a huge problem. Whereas Netflix, they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about anything leaking, anything getting spoiled, because they release everything at the same time. If you're going to binge it, you're going to see it all. If you're not, that's your own prerogative. That's your choice. But they don't have the risk of someone leaking.
That's fair.
And I do think a show such as The Mandalorian, anything connected to Star Wars, and honestly, even the Marvel shows, there is that very high risk that things could get leaked. So that's just a gamble with coming out weekly or bi-weekly versus all at once.
Wonder if they even factor that in their strategy. Like, I wonder if that's a thought.
I think it is. I think with any kind of big content, they have to worry about that. Even when you're like making a movie, how secretive they get about casting and like where they're filming and stuff like that. I think Disney's very leak conscious, but definitely a valid concern. Especially if that stuff's already filmed and in the pipeline. I think that's more likely to leak than something like a film, like plot-wise at least.
Like Star Wars in particular has done a really... Oh, very nice. There's Pete, heard the Grumpy Geek walking by. He just bought a comic book from Stephanie Phillips.
Nice.
You can come get one yourself. So, in terms of the strategy here, I feel, or with Star Wars specifically, I feel like they've done a good job in not leaking stuff. Like, they've kept a tight lid on stuff, and that's probably one of the most sought-after properties to find a leak for. And for the most part, I think they've done good with Marvel too. But I think more than anything, the strategy here is if they... This service is just starting. So in releasing The Mandalorian, if they do it all up front and people binge it day 1 or day 2, what are you doing for the next few months while you wait for the next series to come out? This way, it's a controlled way of keeping people coming back.
Yeah,
and guess what?
That
Now
is very
people
smart.
care about The Mandalorian. You have to do at least 2 months of Disney Plus.
For sure. There is something to be said about those tentpole moments. It's nice to own every Sunday or whatever day it's going to come out. You know, like Game of Thrones, when that final season was on, any of the last 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, they owned every Sunday. So that's, whereas Stranger Things, they owned what, maybe a week? Where
A
that
day.
Was like a day for most people. But like social media buzz was, I would say...
Before breakfast for Amanda.
Exactly. A solid week, Stranger Things owned social media, whereas Game of Thrones got to do that every Sunday for 6 Sundays or 10 Sundays, depending on what season we're talking about.
Long story short, I'm a fan of it. Amanda, from a viewer's perspective, does it deter you, or is it a turn off at all that they're doing episodic weekly releases as opposed to the binge?
No, it doesn't turn me off at all. I enjoy being able to binge, but there is something about knowing, oop, it's Sunday, it's on, you can get
Yeah.
together with your friends. Like, that's what we did when Game of Thrones was on. We would have viewing parties every week, and it was a nice excuse to get together with friends.
It's an event,
It is. So, I kind of, similar to John, I'm not mad either way. I'll take it either way because I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That if you're going to sit and binge the whole thing, great. And if I have to wait a couple months to see what happens, the anticipation is killing me.
The other nice thing is, too, it kind of gives you the choice, minus the whole spoilers thing. Whereas if you don't watch it as it comes out, you can binge a few at a time. So because they'll have the backlog episodes as it goes.
I'm doing that right now with American Horror Story. I watched the first one, and I'm like, oh, I like this. I'm just going to let a few go. And I think I've only watched the first episode, and I think it's on maybe 5, so I've got 3
I think
sitting
we're on
there.
6 now.
So
Yeah,
I've got
we're
4
halfway.
sitting there for me. It's fun. Hasn't been spoiled for me yet, but it's not Star
There's
Wars.
nothing really to spoil. But
Fair enough.
Anyway.